Welcome, everyone, to the No Bull Just Bacon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Allan, and with me here today is Coach Beth to answer all of your burning health and fitness questions from around the social media world. This is a rapid fire episode, and we have a ton of great topics to cover, so let's get started. First one from our Mighty Networks community. As someone who has been following your programs closely, I am a person that started out at 40% body fat. I've dropped about 8% now without losing much weight since I've been gaining muscle. I'm not keen to start a cut just yet because I want to build more muscle before I do. At what point would it be smart for me to move into a cut? This is a woman that was asking that question, and what she's essentially suggesting is that she's at roughly 32% body fat or so. Under these conditions, for women, I'm going to get to men in a second, so hold on, guys. We've got some answers for you as well. When a woman is above 30% body fat, under those conditions, I would recommend a calorie deficit pretty much no matter what, unless you're above that percentage for some sport reason. But when things are health, physique, I mean, even when muscle building is the goal, I think sitting in a slight, modest calorie deficit is a smart move. For women, sitting between 20 and 30% body fat, roughly, is a smart move for overall health. So when you're at 32%, you're kind of at that far end of the range. And so from a health perspective, I would still recommend, hey, it's probably smart to drop down a little bit before hitting that, kind of maintain button or starting to work on building lean muscle. Because even if you're trying to build some muscle in a modest calorie deficit with that much body fat, you're still probably going to build some lean muscle, but you're going to improve health along the way. So for most people, if you're a woman and you're wondering, hey, how do I do this? Get to 25, 27% body fat and then start asking this question. Okay, well, should I be in more of a small calorie surplus? Should I be at maintenance level calories? Until we get to that mid range of the broad range of health, I would still sit in that slight calorie deficit to bring myself down there. So for women, 20 to 30%, shoot for 25, 27% before you start to really have this question. For men, it's between 10 and 20%. So get down to 15 to 17%, 15 to 18%, really, before you start to have this question. Okay, should I start to hold calories here or build up? From a health perspective, that's what I would consider. Now, there are other possibilities that would alter this, because I've certainly had some men that I've worked with that are at like 20, 21, 22% body fat. And I'm like, okay, well, let's stop being in a calorie deficit. But the reason that I've chosen that at that point, and maybe this is appropriate for you, but the reason that I've chosen that at that point is because they really have zero motivation to go into the cut. Overall, they're looking pretty healthy. And emotionally, mentally, maybe they were showing me signs that being in a calorie deficit was a real negative for them. And if that's the case, then at least holding steady at a maintenance level of calories and allowing a little bit of body recomp can be a beneficial thing. At some point, we're probably going to want to go back down into that calorie deficit. But if you've tried a calorie deficit for a significant amount of time, you've made the right food choices, you've made the right timing choices, and you're just not able to stick to it for whatever reason. It's not fitting within your social life. It's that time of year where there are so many holidays that trying to be in a cut right now would be very emotionally distressing for you. Sure, don't drop down into that, going as far as 15% for men or 25% for women. But there are other reasons than the physiology that we would be making that choice. Beth, any thoughts on that? Anything you want to disagree with? Anything?
No, no, I don't really have anything to add there. I think you covered it all really well.
Okay. I mean, so from a physiologic perspective, if you can, if there aren't extenuating circumstances, getting into that mid range of the 10 to 20% for men, 20 to 30% for women, roughly, 1, 2, 3% in either direction off of that mid range, and then making that decision is probably smarter than setting a few percentage points above the range and then saying, okay, well, what should I do from here? You certainly should not go into a build at 32, 33% body fat for a woman. unless there's reason to do it. And for men, I always talk about like if you're, an offensive line for football or something like that, yeah, you're going to be sitting at like a higher body fat percentage. So if there's a sport that is utilizing that more mass, then maybe, but then you're making a choice that's not health driven specifically. Okay. And I don't think that anybody would think, yeah, NFL linemen are the epitome of health. They're probably not, but they're doing it for a performance reason. And maybe that's a reason for you to sit outside of the ranges that we talked about today. All right, moving on. Are BCAAs worth it and do they count towards protein consumption? I wanted to comment on this, even though this has kind of been drilled into the ground. I feel over the past 10 years, I still find people being really confused about this. And I wanted to talk about it because no, EAAs is not different. Because what I've seen is for the first 10 years that we talked about this, I mean, we've known this since about 2005 to 2010 that BCAAs didn't really do anything. Assuming that you have a modest calorie consumption on your daily, you're probably preventing any benefits from supplemental amino acid intake. And we've seen numbers as low as 1.1 grams of protein daily per kilogram of body weight, even in the elderly who are anabolically resistant. And so if anybody would benefit from something like this, it would be the elderly to push that up. But even in them, we're not really seeing a whole lot of benefits. Now, we've known that for, I mean, almost 20 years now. And for the first 10 years that we were putting this message out, everybody would fight and they would be like, no, BCAAs work. I know it. And so the data kept piling up, and piling up. And so people at this point have pretty much accepted that BCAAs are really not going to be a worthwhile purchase and really do much of anything. But now the whole like self-delusion has goal shifted. And now it's all, well, EAAs then. And it's literally just the marketing campaign is moving on to sell you something else. And no, we do not have data suggesting EAAs are significantly beneficial when compared to whole protein sources. And I actually made a post on Instagram literally within the past 2 weeks where I compared the studies that looked at intact proteins, even things like whey protein, to an EAA equated situation where they equate the amount of amino acids between the whey protein and the supplement. The intact proteins provide more benefits. So it becomes problematic because in any situation that you would typically recommend an EAA supplement, you can either use whey or just eat a regular meal, or fast carbs do the benefits that the EAA says that it's going to do, but better. And so like if we're talking about energy sources for training, if we're talking about recovery benefits, fast carbs are better and they are the same calories per gram. And so we've covered this in the past, but this does take bearing repeating because we're getting a lot more people that are listening to these podcasts. So a lot of people probably haven't heard this, but amino acids in free form amino acid, like they do in supplements, are not required in North America to list their calorie content. It's a loophole. It's an erroneous loophole, and I don't know why it ever went into play. But if you've got a free-form amino acid, you can literally list it as 0 calories on a nutrition label, and that's legal, even though they're not 0 calories. They've got the same calories per gram as table sugar. So when a person is making a supplement and they know that everybody else in the supplement industry is going to put 0 calories down, if they put the actual calories, they're not going to sell any product because people are going to choose the 0 calorie. So they put 0 calories. So this kind of removes all of that benefit to choosing an EAA over the other sources that we have that are not more calorie dense. And so a lot of times people were saying, okay, well, I'm going to choose the EAA because I can flavor my water because it gives me some of the benefits of these fast carbs and I don't have calories with it. But that's not the case. It's just a shitty form of fast carbs, essentially, for the benefits that you use it for. So we do not have any reason to believe that this is going to be a beneficial thing. And I know that there are a lot of people that will resort to things like appeals to authority fallacies. This used to be a really big thing when John Meadows was still alive, because John Meadows used to really believe in EAAs, and he had a supplement company that sold EAAs. And so he had a huge following, and he would tell his people, well, EAAs probably work. And then I remember I actually had conversations with him about it. And I'm like, why do you believe this? And he's like, I just think it does. And I'm like, well, is there any reason like in the research or anything like that. He's like, no, it's not shown to work in the research. He just thought it did. And so, people will resort to, well, bodybuilders use it. Well, a lot of them use it because of John Meadows. But even he admitted, I'm not basing this off of anything. I just kind of think it does. I mean, EAAs hadn't really been a thing until like the past 15 or 20 years, and bodybuilders weren't having any problems building a whole lot of muscle prior to that. So I mean, EAAs really, outside of Controlled Labs, Purple Wrath, only really hit the scene after 2010. And so it's not this big, like really beneficial thing, particularly if you're having protein. Now, under conditions where the person's not eating any protein, maybe it can be beneficial, but then the answer is just eat some protein. So like it never really practically comes into play. And the only times that you would really bring this into play is if you're doing something like a marathon or a triathlon or some of these really super extended long endurance type situations, and you're already eating fast carbs, because fast carbs should always be your first source under those conditions. But sure, you could add in some EAAs on top of that if you want, and there are some potential for benefits during extreme endurance competitions. But really, outside of that, you're just wanting to spend money, and I've never really seen a good reason anywhere to take them other than this guy just says that he likes them. So I wanted to cover that again because we've covered the BCAA part a lot in the past, but I do want to directly address, if someone goal shifts to EAAs, there's no level of data that suggests that does anything either. And so be skeptical of these ways to lose some money. Are adrenal supplements BS? Yes. these are these are incredible amounts of BS. And unfortunately, with these adrenal supplements, um, one of the big things that they were marketed on was the fact that people were pushing the idea of adrenal fatigue, and adrenal fatigue has never been shown to be a real thing. You don't get this from having caffeine. You don't get this from working out really hard. It was just something that they made up to essentially sell an adrenal supplement to you. So no, if you believe that you have an issue with your adrenal glands, you need to see a doctor, because adrenal insufficiency is a real thing, but you probably don't have Addison's disease out of nowhere. And it's probably significantly affecting you a lot more than just feeling some malaise. And that's sort of the issue. When people feel tired, all of a sudden it's their adrenals have been shot. But the only really way to denervate that organ is manually manipulating it, or through like a tumor, or certain medications can mess with it. But if you're taking certain medications, I mean, this is a conversation for your doctor. This is not a, hey, I need to use this guy's discount code to get these supplements that may or may not do a beneficial thing in my body. So this goes along the same lines as like cleanses and all those different kind of things. Now, jumping to the next question, which is somewhat related to the whole hormone fear mongering. Are elevated cortisol levels a concern for athletes? Cortisol gets a bad rap, just like insulin gets a bad rap. Insulin serves some very good purposes. I mean, there's a reason that people who have bad insulin control may need to take insulin, because it's not always bad. I mean, if diabetics couldn't take it, they would die. And, just like in your life, cortisol serves a very real purpose. It spikes in the morning to wake you up. It's actually one of the necessary steps in waking up in the morning. People fearmonger having coffee too early because that will increase the spike. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's going to be spiking in the morning anyways. And even on very high amounts of caffeine, like 500 milligrams per day, by the end of a week, that spike drops back down to normal baseline levels. But when people talk about it for athletes, we see this a lot in the women's segment. This becomes a real fear-mongering thing. I've never heard it fear-mongered for men, but I've heard it fear-mongered for women all the time. Both prior to, through, and after menopause. I mean, I've heard it in all of these different situations where people have been very concerned about the effects of cortisol, and they're saying, okay, well, during this stage of life, you have to worry about it because of X. At no stage of life do you have to worry about cortisol spikes from exercise unless you're doing something that is so outrageous, like these like 100-kilometer marathons, 100 milers, those different types of things. Cortisol levels going that high is not necessarily a great thing, but you're also beating down your body in a whole bunch of other ways. But for everybody else that's, exercising normally, going on these, 3 to 5 mile runs, just exercising in the gym, doing any kind of cardio you want. It doesn't matter what kind of cardio it is. They're all beneficial adaptations. And the cortisol spike is part of that because cortisol, when it spikes, is a way to liberate energy. It's what provides the energy for that exercise. So when people are like, well, when you exercise, it spikes cortisol. Yes, it's doing that because you're exercising and because it's giving you a benefit to the exercise. But it's funny because when we look at cortisol levels, people that spike their cortisol levels through exercise have, the highest acute spikes in a day compared to like literally everybody else, but they've got the lowest baseline levels of cortisol. So yeah, for 2 hours or slightly more after exercise, it's going to be raised compared to a person that doesn't exercise. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing because overall it's doing a really big net positive and it's working for a specific reason while it's spiked. And I was just on another podcast this past week and they were asking about cortisol. And one of the things that I was saying with that is, people will say, hey, look, in an effort to fearmonger cortisol, to sell supplements, to sell specific programs or diets, they'll say, hey, look, we're going to give you this diet or this exercise program that minimizes cortisol. You can't do this type of cardio or whatever it is. And, we'll show you that it has lower cortisol levels. You could, in the inverse, use like mechanistic data like they use and tell half of the story to try to sell higher cortisol levels. I mean, cortisol is used to spike hormone sensitive lipase, and hormone sensitive lipase is the body's chief fat releasing enzyme. So if I wanted to trick people, I could say theoretically, having more hormone sensitive lipase would mean that you liberate more fat from fat cells. So spike your cortisol as much as high as possible all the time. But that's just as disingenuous as saying you need to keep it as low as possible all the time. That's not how the body works. You need to understand, why is it spiking? How long is it spiking? Is this a chronically elevated thing? What's causing the spike? And then you understand how it affects your body because sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not. If it's chronically elevated from like severe psychological or emotional trauma, yeah, that's not a good thing because you're not getting any of those beneficial adaptations from the training itself alongside it. It's not spiking to cause these adaptations. If it's from a 30-minute jog that you want to do, and I don't know what you've seen, Beth, but I've seen the problem with addressing this with those women influencers is that I've seen both. I've seen some women influencers say you can't do high intensity work because it'll spike cortisol. I've seen other ones say you can't do endurance work because it'll spike cortisol. And, maybe I'm just not paying attention close enough, but I see a lot of back and forth between the two, even among, these influencers that are friends. They just have completely opposing messages there.
Yeah, the one that I've seen the most commonly is well, I think there's also confusion about what is considered high intensity versus and I know that we've had this conversation on this podcast multiple times about what is truly HIIT. And I think the difference here actually is coming down to the semantics on what people consider high intensity interval training versus that sort of moderate or like mid intensity interval training. The mid intensity is what most of them say no to. So like CrossFit, Orange Theory, it's where you're spiking, bringing it down, it's essentially just basic interval training. High intensity interval training is not regular interval training. Moderate intensity interval training is something that you can probably sustain for a longer period of time. So, a CrossFit, you might be doing an hour-long Metcon or an hour-long Orange Theory class. That is usually the time domain that they say spikes the cortisol too high, which we know is BS. But I think that's why there's some inconsistency with that is because there's not people don't understand that high intensity interval training is not just basic interval training. It's above and beyond that.
High intensity interval training. If you want the direct definition, I have it on my I did a post on our like squats, doing squats quickly is that cardio, and I actually give the heart rate ranges to show where you start to fall into that range. Now, what Beth is saying is 100% true. When you start to get into high intensity interval training range, you can only sustain that for about 2 to 6 minutes max.
Hmm.
So if you're sustaining that level of effort longer than 6 minutes, you're not in high
You're
intensity
not
interval
doing
training.
high intensity interval training.
No,
I cannot stress that enough.
no, you're not. No, and it
And
might
you should
feel hard
only
what you're
technically
doing.
really only be able to do that like a couple times a week because the recovery from it is what takes a considerable amount out of you as well. So like if you do a true hit session on Monday, you probably aren't ready to do another one until Thursday or Friday, truthfully. So if
Yeah.
you are ready to go the next day, you didn't do high intensity the day before.
Probably not. You probably didn't work as hard as you think you did. And that's not to like get down on anybody because we all get into that type of thing, but like you'll notice the recovery requirements like really go up when you're really pushing yourself. You'll notice that.
Yeah.
One of the things that Beth was saying where she was talking about, the cortisol rise from these medium intensity bouts. It's funny, like I had mentioned the hormone sensitive lipase if I wanted to convince you to raise cortisol. The way that they convince you to lower cortisol is they will say, one, cortisol is always bad. And if they're saying that, then they don't really know what they're talking about to begin with. Two, what they do is they'll show you a study, and I've seen this how they justify it. It's always really funny if you know like the full breadth of research. What they'll do is they'll show you a study and they'll say, hey, look, if I get you into HIIT and I get you into like a medium intensity training scenario, at 2 hours out, the medium intensity training scenario has not started recovering. It's still really high, and the high intensity has started recovering. Therefore, the high intensity is what you want to do. That's what I've seen. The problem is they will typically pick studies that stop there at 2 hours. If you look at the studies that go out 6 hours or longer, yes, the medium intensity just does stay elevated longer, but it's still not a chronic elevation. And those medium intensity ones are the ones that lead to a lower resting cortisol compared to any other exercise, compared to lifting, compared to high intensity interval training. Medium intensity endurance work lowers resting cortisol levels better than any other training. And so what they're doing is they're showing you this very small snapshot and they're saying, look, it's really scary. And then if you actually see, it brought out, all of a sudden it's no longer scary. It's actually beneficial. And that's how funny it is when you give people just part of the information. And I always like to explain it as the entirety of information on a subject is a dark room. And they come in and they point a flashlight into the corner and they say, here's what the topic is. And this is why you need to buy my stuff. And then somebody that has a grasp on the entire topic will come in, they'll flip on the light to the entire room and they're like, that's true. What they're saying is true, but the conclusion that they're drawing is completely wrong because of everything else on this side of the room. And so I unfortunately, I think in a lot of these cases, those people actually know about the other side of the room, but it doesn't fit their platform.
Doesn't help them sell anything.
No, and that's where these like menopredator doctors are really trying to like
Like,
grasp onto people. Yeah, and it's a really unfortunate thing because this is a group of people that they're scared and they want some answers. And these people are all telling them, well, your doctors have ignored you and don't want to pay attention to you, and researchers have never studied you, and I've got the answer. Well, if researchers have never studied us, how do you have the answer? You
right,
wouldn't know either.
right.
And so it's always really funny when the person's like, you've never been studied, but I know what to do. And you're like, but how? And then they'll bust out the mouse research. And you're like, okay, cool. This is great. Okay. Um, what type of recovery should I be doing? Sauna, mobility, massages, stretching. Um, recovery, the real recovery is eating correctly, sleeping right, stress relief, stay lightly active. If you're doing all of those, literally the rest of this it just doesn't really matter. It's kind of like what'll make you feel better, what do you just enjoy doing? The sauna's fine, massages are fine, stretching is fine, it all feels good. Whatever you prefer. I mean, there's nothing really those things aren't really going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those like majoring in the minor type things. As long as you're not really icing cryotherapy or ice bathing. That's one that you should stay away from because that's going to cause a bunch of negatives. At least things like sauna and those different types of things, as long as you're replacing any lost electrolytes from sweating, it's not really going to cause any major negatives unless you're trying to train really soon after doing the sauna. Same thing with stretching. But staying lightly active, eating right, and sleep. And
Sleeping.
everybody ignores the sleep part. And most people who are trying to cut for their entire lives are ignoring the nutrition part, and being chronically in a negative energy balance is going to cause some hits to recovery. So like if you got to be in a cut for whatever reason for a really long period of time, then you're going to have to adjust the volume in your programming. I mean, you're going to have to probably lower the volume in your programming to account for some of that recovery stimulus, particularly if you're not able to sleep and stress really very well, because emotional stress is very, very big. If you're worried about what's going on in your relationship, if you're worried what's going on in your job, that's going to impact how you recover very, very large. I've covered that before too, and I cannot remember the exact percentages. I've actually covered it, but it was something like it drops recovery 30 or 40% if you're emotionally stressed, which is major. And then the longer that goes on, I would suspect that, hormone disruption comes into play, like men and testosterone probably goes down pretty significantly. I would think that it would mess with women as well. And so, yeah, I mean, Beth and I will consistently preach active recovery. And I really think that if you're looking for something that you can do actively, whether it's, sauna, stretching, active recovery is the right answer. Just don't sit on the couch, go for a walk, go for a hike, do something light that gets you moving, even like getting on a bike and going for a gentle ride. Getting those muscles moving will do more for getting the blood flow, get nutrients flow, loosen the muscles up, make you feel a little bit better, make you feel productive, get you out into nature, all those other benefits that you get from these types of things. So stop trying to like hole yourself away in like a cryo chamber or a sauna and get out and do something outside. I don't care if it's cold, toss on a scarf. Just do it. Get outside. I mean, we have to deal with like the sun is literally baking my Scottish skin
So hot.
and I still get
I know people
outside.
are like, "Oh, poor you, you're a Maui." People like, unless you really live here and feel the ultraviolet radiation that comes from the sun and melts your skin and makes you feel like you feel like you're being cooked like a rotisserie chicken.
Now, 8 months out of the year, they're right. 8 months
Yeah.
out of the year, oh, you're in Maui, shut up. That's true.
Yeah. I mean,
4 months out of the year,
winter here is awesome, but summer is just abysmal.
4 months out of the year, we live in a microwave.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go outside between I would say like not like truly for me, it starts at 9 a.m. Like when I'm walking Sable, any later, I have to get it done before 9 o'clock in the morning. So from 9 until 4, it is just like the UV index is like 13 plus.
Look at my skin right now. Look at how red I look. I mean, and I wear like a huge brimmed
You
hat. I
wear
mean,
big brimmed hats and
yeah,
sunscreen, and it doesn't
yeah.
matter.
And like desert scarves we wear,
Hmm.
and I have like sleeves that I put on that are UPF 50. Like I don't even get my arms tan. Like if I know that I'm going outside to mow the lawn for 10 minutes, I'll go shirtless. I'll be like, that's my vitamin D for the day.
Yeah.
And that's it. But it's really like short periods of time. And even when we go to the beach, I don't lay out. I get
Mm-mm.
under the tent and everything like that. But yeah.
Yeah, if it's
So
cold, just y'all gotta just get a good jacket and because like literally 10 minutes, like you can go outside for 10 minutes in the cold. You'll be okay.
hey, half of the population is jumping into ice cold baths. Now go outside and just do
I
some
know.
activity in it. For the people
Just
that love cold plunging, you've got a better way to
Jesus.
that'll raise your dopamine much, much higher, and you're still getting the cold. So it'll benefit you there. All right, next question. Tips to get rid of water retention and bloating.
Oh my
This is
God.
going to be like every time I talk about this is going to be why everybody tunes into this episode. This right here is the answer. I actually have some good answers for you guys. So, stay tuned. This is going
You're
to be a
you're
really nice
probably
thing for you.
not bloated though.
You're probably not, but if you feel like you've got something, here's some things that you can do. You're not going to like the first one because it's not a magic trick. It's what you should really be doing first, but you're going to like the other ones because some of them are a little bit nice to know. Number one, fucking drink water. If you feel like you are having water retention, if you feel like you have bloating, The number one problem is you probably don't drink enough water. Yes, I do. I drink when I'm thirsty. I don't care. Drinking when you're thirsty is not a great way to decide whether or not you are hydrated. I know that some other coaches say that. I 100% do not agree with them.
I don't
I
agree with
have
them either.
I have worked with thousands of clients. We monitor water on every client. They're all fucking terrible.
Yeah.
There's literally like out of 1,000 clients, I get 50 out of 1,000 that are actually hydrated.
Yeah.
And the rest are like, I drink as much as I can. And they're at like 75 ounces a day.
Yeah. Oh, mine are way less than that. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. I do not get thirsty. I do not get thirsty. I could literally have my morning cup of coffee and not drink a sip if I'm not working out, not drink a single sip of anything else until 6 p.m. No, I mean, Alan has seen it. He has seen it in action.
She's a
I have
cactus.
to, I'm a cactus. I have to be very intentional about the water that I drink. I am now making more of an effort because I'm on a cut and I know that more water in equals more water out on the scale. And actually, the more hydrated you are, you're less likely to have those wild scale fluctuations that you often see in a cutting phase where, one day you might be 150 pounds and the next day you're up to 156. If you consistently drink a good amount of water, those scale fluctuations actually almost entirely go away. So for those of you that are obsessed with the scale and it makes or breaks your day, drink more damn water. But I 100% agree that would be the first thing that I would look at if you think that you're retaining water, drink water.
Well, and addendum to that, eat adequate fiber, and track your fiber for a while so you can figure out where you are. Now, for just a general rule for everybody, now this is not specific to like any individual person. It might be higher for most people. At least get 25 grams as an adult. At least get 25 grams. And if that's the barrier to entry, I want to set it a little bit lower than what we probably should, but I want you to start trying to get that amount in. If your fiber amount is wildly varying or not consistent, you might feel bloated or like you're retaining water. I mean, shifting fiber amounts, shifting sodium amounts will cause this quite a bit. And so like a lot of people will be like, oh, I feel really bloated. I don't know what's going on. I need to like take a supplement. But you just had nachos within like 48 hours. Like, yeah, be conscious of what you're eating because that's going to make a really big difference as far as water retention goes. Now, let's talk about tricks. What people really want to hear. They don't want to hear drink water because they're not going to do that. So what are the other things? Now, again, these do not replace drinking water
I'm going to hate you for this. I already know
and
it.
eating adequate fiber. These do not replace that. God, this is the funniest thing. And it's
Well, you
funny.
shouldn't even say it. You shouldn't even tell the people
No,
what they want to hear
I'm,
here.
I'm going to tell the people what they want to hear. I'm finally going to be, because like my entire life, I'm telling people, this is stupid. Don't do this. Don't do this. Stop doing this. I'm tired of being negative. I'm just going to give you what you want. And I'm not even selling anything. That's why this is going to be fun. I can finally be the good guy. All right. You're going to be bored with the first one. Eat slowly and actually chew your goddamn food. You do not need to eat like our dog who just swallows things whole. You're going to cause indigestion. It's going to cause problems. That can make you feel a little bit bloated. Sure. Lower your carbonated drinks, your sugar alcohols, xylitol, mannitol, sorbitol will fuck up your gut. I'm not fear mongering. Sugar alcohols are rough on the GI tract. It is not a problem. It's not pathology. You might have some diarrhea. It's not pathology.
Some.
Yeah. Not pathology. I'm not saying these things are dangerous for you. I'm saying if you're telling me that you always feel like you're bloated, it could be you're having too much xylitol, mannitol, or sorbitol, especially if you're going for like sugar-free alternatives. Sugar-free alternatives that use sugar alcohols are rough on the GI tract. It makes you feel bad. So be conscious of that. And chewing gum can make it a lot worse. You swallow a lot of air
A lot of
when
air.
you chew gum. That can be very problematic. That could be the cause of you having issues in conjunction with the fact that you don't drink any water. Tricks. Peppermint oil is a potentially easy win to help reduce bloating if you experience it. Having about 0.2 milliliters to 0.4 milliliters of peppermint oil 3 times per day, 30 to 60 minutes before eating, can significantly reduce these symptoms along with adequate hydration.
Did you hear
Probiotics.
that part, y'all? Along with
Yeah.
adequate hydration. Let's
I keep repeating
make
it because everyone's going to be like,
sure
"Shut the
we
fuck up,
listen to
Alan.
that
Just tell
part.
me the trick." Peppermint oil can work pretty well for that. Probiotics may also help. I don't recommend probiotics. I don't recommend probiotics for anything outside of treating things or preventing things like antibiotic induced diarrhea, because like the honest truth here is you could find a study to push probiotics for literally anything in the world that you wanted to, and you could find 10 times the amount of studies based on that one study that you're pushing it for that show that it doesn't work for that. Probiotics are the most ridiculous thing in supplements these days because their effects vary dramatically between people. The strains are completely different between people. The dosing is completely different between people. If you want to try them, you can, but there are also some downsides potentially from taking probiotics. I mean, brain fog is apparently one of them. I don't recommend probiotics. I'm just trying to be thorough with the coverage of this, and there are some studies showing that it can help with this. There are even more studies showing that it doesn't help with this. Probiotics are probably something that we are going to see in the future be a very viable treatment for a lot of things. We don't know enough about the gut to be able to tailor this to what you need in your gut. We don't know the dose, we don't know the strain, we don't know how long, we don't know for what. So the best recommendation for probiotics is to just not buy them. But I'm being thorough here, and I'm going to bring that out that it is potential. And if you're talking to other people that are like, oh, I'm a gut health expert, and they'll be like, buy probiotics. Yeah, they can show you a study. It doesn't really mean anything. More important than probiotics is prebiotics. Prebiotics for everything that is claimed for a probiotic is more important. What are prebiotics? Fiber. Eat your fruits and vegetables, all the stuff that we're talking about all of the time. Literally, if you just listen to our base recommendations, it solves every one of your problems, and you don't need these tricks. But everybody ignores those to find the probiotic that they need instead of actually eating some Brussels sprouts.
Yeah,
That's the magic one. You have to eat Brussels sprouts. That's our prescription there. We even got Sable to eat a Brussels sprout the other
we
day.
did. We found
Yeah,
out she likes Brussels sprouts.
yeah, because I eat that fire roasted
Fire roasted veggie from
veggie,
Costco.
yeah, veggie mix from
A
Costco. It's in
good,
there.
that's a good ass mix.
Yeah, it's in their freezer aisle, and it like you
So
literally don't need to
good.
cook anything. It tastes really good. It goes with a whole lot of like different
Throw
food
it into
options.
you can throw it into the microwave. I use it sometimes with eggs. Like I make a scramble in the morning with that and some cheese. It's really good.
Yeah, I just take it and I put it in the microwave for 3 minutes, and then I take a paper towel to like dab out the excess water because I go straight from the frozen bag. So you get like that
The ice.
excess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of get rid of that. You can certainly roast it in the air fryer. That's probably a lot better, but I just kind of get lazy and toss it and I'll eat it anyways. But for men, there you go. There's a great way to get your fiber in. And there's like mushrooms, there's bell peppers in it. Like it's a nice mix.
Onions. It's good. It's
Yeah.
really good.
The last trick for water retention and bloating that actually does have some data that suggests it could work. Ginger seems to work really well, and that can be ingested in a whole bunch of ways. I'm going to recommend 1 gram daily of supplemental ginger to help with GI motility and to prevent bloating seems to work really well. Beth, you can probably speak to this. I mean, you've taken, Orange Triad, which I helped formulate, that has a gram of
Yeah.
ginger in there, and you can
I love
certainly
that.
tell a difference on your GI motility.
The digestive complex that was in Orange Triad was like mint. It was so
Yeah,
good.
it was a multivitamin that I helped formulate. I put ginger in there because it,
Yeah.
it seems to work really well for that.
Somebody actually described it really well without getting
Oh, Jesus.
gross. They said that it's not that it makes you go to the bathroom more often. It's that when you go, it makes it easier and more comfortable.
It does. Yep.
You're not like straining or having diarrhea. It's not one of the two. You're sort of it's the composition that it should be essentially.
So it's a good addition to your all cheese diet.
Yeah.
For the person listening to this that doesn't drink any water and just eats
Doesn't
cheese.
drink any water and only eats cheese.
Okay, so I've done 2 podcasts already this week. This is my third podcast. My voice is starting to go. So I'm going to answer one more question and then we're going to sign off because I just want to be able to talk over the weekend. Do you need a specific day for arms? I have never consulted with Beth on this. We might have different answers for this. I'm very open to hearing other people's ideas. on this one. I don't think that you need a specific day for arms. I do think that you need to target arms specifically if you want the best arms possible. I'm not of that bullshit functional movement camp where they're like, "Oh, your arms get worked if you just do everything else." I don't believe that for any muscle. I don't believe that like, using it secondarily is going to eke out the best potential for any muscle if you're trying to get the best strength or hypertrophy possible, the best physique possible, the best strength possible. I think that you need to target muscles. I mean, I feel that way about abs too. Now, that's not to say that some people can't build programs where they just don't have arm work. If that's not that important to you, that's fine. You're going to get enough arm work to live in programs where you have like rowing and where you have pressing and all that kind of stuff. That's perfectly fine. I'm saying you can't optimize progress in those muscles without direct work. Beth, what do you think?
I completely agree with that. I mean, of the camp that like I don't love to work my arms because bicep and tricep work bores me to absolute tears. And I also just don't want big biceps and triceps. So I don't specifically program them for myself. But if that is an area that somebody wants to bring up, then I do agree that it needs specific targeting.
Now, that's different than saying it needs an entire day.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think an entire day of arms
I feel like you would get
is
exhausted
is a
real
waste of a
quick.
day.
Yeah.
And I
Because
say
you
that,
get through if like a bunch of like more than a few sets and like how many different ways can you work your biceps and triceps and then they're done after like three sets of decent work.
I mean, three or
Like
four
it's just
sets in a
yeah.
day when you have
It's a lot.
some secondary application of it through rows, through
Yeah.
presses, you're done. Like
Yeah. Even
you
when
don't
I was
need.
doing figure, I never had a dedicated arm day. Like it was always like biceps with something else, like buys and back or something like that.
Now you can set it up that way if you want. You
Yeah.
can set up an arm day. I mean, the bro split that like literally all the bodybuilders did from the 60s through the 90s, it works.
Yeah.
It's not super efficient. And then a lot of times when they were doing that, when they were setting up those bro days, they had like 6 days of training, but that's why they had
Yeah.
6 days of training
Yeah.
because that sixth day was an arms day and it wasn't really that long. It was like 45 minutes. And then they're like, okay, I'm done.
Arms and
And
abs. Usually they pair together because
yeah,
for that reason, because like it's your arm days. If you just did arms by themselves, you're talking like 30 minutes of work, and then they would just do like 20 or 30 minutes of abs. So usually those two
yeah.
go together.
So you can have an arms day. It's just a super inefficient way to do it. You can do the same thing if you don't want to live in the gym. You can do something like the way that we program for our one-on-one clients or the way that we program our Iron Core group fitness. We incorporate enough arms to maximize development there. Through our we have when we do the group fitness programming, the way that we make it applicable for all people, men, women, beginners, advanced, we have an ability for you to choose volume and we have an ability for you to choose multiple exercises throughout the week. And we split that up typically based off of stereotypical gender goals. Not that, a woman couldn't have the goals that a man does or a man couldn't have the goals that a woman does because certainly some do. But stereotypically, like there's some people that are going to want to train more lower body. There's some people that are going to want to train more upper body. And to Beth's point, Beth doesn't really train a whole lot of direct arm work. So why would we force everybody to do a whole lot of direct arm work when 50% of the people doing it don't want to do that? And that's perfectly fine. As long as they've got some in play that we don't have in optional spots, but then give them some other ones. I mean, we don't need to have like 19 things of glute work for the average male.
Yeah.
It's
So
just
like to
so
Alan's point, like on a push day, we might have a section where you get to choose between something for, like your quads, or something for like your chest or shoulders or whatever it may be. So you can it's a choose your own adventure. So you can
yeah.
pick something that you like if you don't want to work your chest or you don't want to work your triceps on that particular exercise and you would prefer to work your quads, you can certainly do that. So that's
Now,
that's kind of how we've broken that up for folks.
yeah, and it works really well for everybody. Now, we do believe that no matter whether you're a male, female, a person that wants to train legs, a person that wants to train upper body, you need to do some. And
Hmm.
so that's why we build it so you're not skimping on your
Yeah.
own progress, health, longevity, because like even women, this is super stereotypical, and I apologize if it sounds semi-misogynistic. There are a lot of women that have worked with me one-on-one, and they're like, I don't want to train chest. And
Mhm.
I'm like, you have to train some chest.
Yeah.
Because like if you can't pick yourself up off the ground when you've fallen or brace
Yeah.
yourself when you're falling forward,
Or
I've not
push
done my
something
job as a
off of
coach.
you.
Right. And the same thing with men. I'll get some men that are like, I don't want to do as much leg work. And I'm like, sorry, dude, you got to do some. And
Yeah.
so we'll program that, but that ratio changes, and this allows us to be able to do that. But I mean, it goes along with that whole idea of should an entire day be spent on arms? No, I mean, I don't think anybody really needs to spend an entire day on arms. The only reason that you would actually do that is if you're doing an old bro split, and that's just like that's the way that you prefer to train. Is it the most efficient? Is it the most effective? No, probably not. Is it still effective? Yeah. I mean, one day working on specific body parts, chest one day, back one day, shoulders one day, legs one day. It works. I mean, it's been shown to work throughout history, but like even the bodybuilders these days, they don't do that bro split anymore. Nobody does. The only reason that you do that bro split is if you grew up in the 70s and 80s and you're still working off of bodybuilding plans from like muscle and fitness and stuff from like the 80s and 90s. And what's really funny is if for the people that are trying to get like chat GPT things, like chat GPT pulls from those. So maybe we're going to see an uptick
Yeah.
in people doing a lot more bro splits because they don't realize that ChatGPT gives out really bad programs. And the research, whenever they've researched it, they've looked at it, and they've found that it's pulling from old muscle and strength magazines for their programming. So yeah, it's 30 or 40-year-old programming that you're getting when you're looking at that kind of thing. Because what it does is it tries to find the most referenced, the most popular thing on the internet, and some of those old ones have had more time to circulate, and so it pulls from those more than anything else. Okay, that's a good place to stop for the day. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on another episode of No Bull, Just Bacon. Reach out to us with your questions on Instagram, Facebook, Mighty Networks, anywhere that you find us online, and we will see you next week.